From victims who weren't lucky enough to survive, to a man that had to keep his wetsuit on to prevent his vital organs from falling out, we take a look at 7 of the deadliest shark attack stories. Number 7. Rodney Fox, 1963. After being pulled from the water, Rodney Fox's ribcage and upper stomach were exposed after suffering a punctured diaphragm, pierced scapula, and ripped lung. If not for the wetsuit he had on, his internal organs would literally have spilled out. After 450 stitches and 4 hours of extensive surgery, Rodney became a miracle survivor. Fox tangled with the great white when he was defending his Australian spearfishing title. He gouged the shark in the eyes when he was grabbed by the torso. After a second strike on the shark, Fox got his other arm out of its mouth. The beast wasn't done yet. It attacked a second time and dragged Fox all the way to the ocean floor before letting him up. Number 6. Pacific Coast of the United States, 1984. In the 20th century, along the Pacific coast of North America, there were 108 authenticated shark attacks, 50 of them directed at divers. 4 of those attacks occurred in 1984 near Santa Cruz, California. 28-year-old Omar Conger was a victim of the first of those 4 attacks, which caused his death. According to his diving companion, Chris Ream, it grabbed him from behind and while shaking him violently, pulled him under the water. But due to the massive blood loss, Conger didn't survive. Number 5. Singapore, 1909. In this case, shark attacks were a byproduct of a greater tragedy. The French steamer La Seine was carrying 100 passengers to Singapore from Java in November of 1909. There was a dense fog, which caused the ship to collide with a British India Steamship Company liner called the Onda. This collision occurred about 26 miles from land, and the small French ship sank as a result. Of the 161 total people aboard both ships, it's estimated that 101 of them, including the captain of the La Seine, Joseph Kolalik, were killed by sharks. Number 4. Seychelles, 2011. 30-year-old Ian Redman was on his honeymoon off Ansalazio Beach in the Seychelles when he was attacked by a 6-foot shark. His wife Gemma Houghton was sunbathing on the beach while he was just 20 yards from shore snorkeling. She bore witness to the entire incident, which occurred just 10 days into their marriage. One of Ian's legs and one of his arms was ripped off in the attack. After hearing cries for help, a vacationer in a small boat pulled Redman to shore, and although a doctor tried to provide first aid, the bleeding was too great and Redman bled to death on the beach. The worst part about it is that the whole tragedy could have been avoided. Just 2 weeks prior to this incident, and just 400 yards from where Ian Redman was snorkeling, a young Frenchman was also killed by a shark. Rather than close the beach down or put up warning signs, tourism chief in the Seychelles came under a lot of scrutiny for failing to warn tourists about the danger. Number 3. The Jersey Shore, 1916. The real New Jersey Jaws, or as it was earlier called, the case of the Jersey Maneater, involved 5 shark attacks over a 10-day period along the Jersey Shore in 1916. Millions of people flocked to seaside resorts because of the blistering heat that year. 25-year-old Charles Van Sant was the first victim. Within 5 days, Charles Bruder was also attacked at Spring Lake. Matawan Creek, 30 miles north of Spring Lake, was the site of the final 3 attacks. Of the 5 incidents, the first 4 victims died, and the 5th was lucky to survive after sustaining such serious injuries. Number 2. Shirley Ann Durdin, 1985. According to the Australian Shark Attack File, over the last 50 years, there have been only 61 human fatalities due to shark attacks. Australia, though, for some reason, has gotten a reputation as a place where you might want to think twice before getting in the water, and a lot of that is due to shark attacks like the one that killed Shirley Ann Durdin in 1985. 33-year-old Shirley was a mother of 4 and a housewife. She was in Peak Bay snorkeling for scallops in 7-foot deep water when she was attacked without warning by a great white. Her children and husband could only watch as a shark brutally tore her in two 150 yards offshore. Reports from the Telegraph state that rescuers arrived only to find the victim's headless torso. The great white was then seen circling back to take that as well. Witnesses claim that the shark was approximately 20 feet long. Number 1. USS Indianapolis, 1945. Here's a quick history lesson. 1945, the world's first operational atomic bomb is taken to the island of Tinian. This U.S. warship was sent unescorted toward the Philippines just 5 days later. It was on that day, July 30th, halfway between the Leyte Gulf and Guam, that 6 torpedoes were fired by a Japanese submarine at the Indianapolis, 2 of which made direct hits. The warship was split in 2 after being hit in the bow and the fuel tank. Almost 1,200 military personnel were aboard. 300 were unable to get off the ship, and the other 900 were tossed into the ocean. As you can imagine, it didn't take long for white-tipped sharks to start circling the sailors. It took rescuers 5 days to reach the wreckage. By that time, nearly 600 of the sailors were dead. By the time rescue efforts concluded, only 317 people survived. Woody James, one of the few survivors, said, quote, "The sharks were around, hundreds of them. Be quiet, and then you'd hear somebody scream. A shark had got him."